All right, let's call this Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Tuesday, May 27th to order. Can I get a roll call of members?
Andy Bailey,
Here.
Grant Muller,
Here.
Stacy Pettigo,
Here.
Scott Hutchinsberger,
Here.
Chester Beckes.
Here.
And staff members Liz Stitzel and Kat Bell, as well as attorney Jay Moore, are also present.
Awesome. Has anybody have any corrections to the minutes that were presented? Take a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Anybody have a second? I'll second it. Can I just take a vote? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have no old business, so it's on to the public hearings. Let's do application number CC 2025-00300. It's docket number 10-25-SC. It's a petition of Jeffrey Coomer. He's requesting a special exception. Can you take us through the staff report, please?
Sure thing. As you notice, the applicant is Jeffrey Coomer. He's out on Kelly Road, 2481 East. And this is a special exception. We've seen a number of these recently. I actually like seeing them as alternatives to new home sites, but this is another accessory apartment and an accessory structure request. This particular property is zoned agriculturally, but it's kind of in a transitional area where there's low-density residential sitting adjacent to it directly to the east, and there's numerous homes. Right here, it's pretty close to Frankfurt. This site consists of two parcels. There's a total of 9.35 acres. It's between Arrowhead Lane and South Highland Drive on the south side of Kelly Road in Section 13 of Center Township. The proposed accessory structure with the accessory apartment technically already exists. It's the original 1918 house that is serving the petitioner as their primary dwelling right now. The petitioner would like to build a new dwelling further back on the same property for him to transition into, but would like to keep the existing one as a smaller unit to be able to rent. The two parcels that are there have to remain together in order to stay subdivision exempt. There is a small amount of floodplain in the northwest corner, but where the new dwelling is proposed, it should not have any effect. The health department has already given approval for the reuse of a septic that was installed to the rear in 1994 for future use, but as far as we understand, has never been utilized up to this point. There's a zoning map there on the first page, and then on the second page, you can see the two parcels highlighted and how close those are to Frankfurt and the number of houses that are through there. And then a photograph looking south from Kelly Road, an attractive home site there, and you can see the house to the front. The location the new home would go is actually out of sight.
No, that's not.
Oh, that's not.
They're
Oh,
it's way.
revise
back
that. You cannot see any houses. They're all down the lane to the back. And then on the third page there is a site plan that shows you how he would extend his lane back to where the new home site would be. In terms of a request analysis, there are a series of findings that need to be affirmed in order to approve the special exception, as well as some specific standards for accessory apartments. So first is the proposed use conforms to the district provisions in which it will be located and the general regulations of the ordinance. So there's 8 supplemental developmental standards. I'm not going to read through every one of them in detail, other than to note that it appears that all standards are met. As this is already an existing house that's been occupied, we don't really have to worry about him meeting building code in this case. And he does understand he has to live, as does any future owner, in one or the other of the units. The second standard is the proposed use shall not involve an element or cause a condition that may be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to any other property or persons, and shall comply with the performance standards herein. So if this application is approved, the petitioner will then be permitted to move forward with getting his permits to build the larger dwelling to transition into. No complaints have been received for either the residential use or any other use creating any sort of noxious condition. In terms of density, while not noted in the staff report, there's a much greater residential density adjacent to this, so it's not going to look out of character in any way, shape, or form. The third finding is the proposed use shall be sited, oriented, and landscaped so the relationship of its buildings and grounds to adjacent buildings and properties does not impair health, safety, or comfort, nor adversely affect values of adjacent properties. So again, the accessory apartment will be the existing dwelling, which will be closer to the road than the new dwelling. The existing dwelling is about 1,100 square foot, and the proposed new dwelling will be about 2,500. So there should still be a secondary appearance there. It appears that with the appropriate standards in place, the finding would be met. For the proposed use shall produce a total environmental effect consistent with and not harmful to the environment of the neighborhood. So again, in this case, the accessory unit already exists. As I demonstrated elegantly, you cannot see anything from the road, so the view really isn't going to change for visitors or people passing by. 5, the proposed use shall organize vehicular access and parking to minimize conflicting traffic movement on adjacent streets. In this case, we've got 9+ acres. There's plenty of room for the 4 required parking spaces. There's really no concerns here. And finally, the proposed use shall promote the objectives of the ordinance and be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the 2012 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Goal 2 says to promote the development of residential areas with high-quality housing in a variety of types, styles, and densities. And this site is in Center Township, where there's already a low-density residential use adjacent. It's less than a quarter mile from Frankfort's urban growth area boundary, and the corporate limits are close to that as well. The addition of an accessory apartment on the petition site, subject to board approval, appears to support those goals. I would also note, as I often do, that I feel like, not always, but many times with these types of requests, it allows us to be a little more pure about preserving farm ground than sometimes it feels like when we wrestle with where the appropriate spots are for additional homes, because nothing has to be sacrificed. We're just utilizing land more efficiently that's already residential in nature. So consequently, staff recommends the approval of the special exception request for the accessory apartment, and allowing the petitioner to move forward with the condition that the 2 tax parcels must stay together with both dwellings unless the petitioner later follows the subdivision process to divide them, and thus they will share a single address like other accessory units do.
Thanks. Liz, does the petitioner have anything to add to the staff report? Nope.
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay.
I'm just
Go to-
trying to figure out where the
Existing house is right here. The
Way
new
off
unit
the
would
road.
go back here.
And now I'll be way off the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
well, in other words, what I was, isn't this the parcel that was once the Hoyers? Or is it, or I'm one over?
Hoyers is on the other side of that.
it. Yep.
So Danielle built a house there last year where the Hoyers was.
here.
Okay,
So then Dad lives next to her, then I'm on the other side. and then my
Okay,
little brother lives
okay.
in front.
I was one off then, that's why,
Yeah.
okay.
Because that's 2331, he's 2335, my little brother's 2451, and I'm 2481.
Okay.
Very good.
That's why I couldn't I kept.
Yeah, that's where you were lost.
Where's that big horse barn?
Well, it's now a house. It's now a house. Yeah, it's now a house.
Very good.
I thought the horse barn it's gone now, right?
Yeah, the horse barn burnt to the ground, and then they built a new barn, and then my sister attached the front of her house to it.
Okay.
So now it's a giant garage.
I'm just going to note for the recording and anyone online, there was a question from Jay, which I think was heard, about where a previous owner may have lived, and the petitioner explained that his family is all kind of through that area, but this is not the site the previous Hoyers were on, and then the horse barn burnt, and there's now a large house and garage there.
Very good. Any other discussion amongst the board?
Pretty straightforward.
I don't see anything. Entertain a motion.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve application CC 2025-00300, docket 1025 SE. According to the findings of the staff report, which are incorporated in motion by reference with the conditions that the 2 tax parcels stay together, both dwellings, unless further approvals are obtained in the future, according to the staff report.
I'll second.
I'll take a
My
roll.
second was
Grant.
Yes, Grant. I'll take a roll call vote when you get a chance, Liz.
All right, Andy Bailey,
Yes.
Grant Muller,
Yes.
J.C. Pettigo,
Yes.
Scott Hotzensberger,
Yes.
Chester Bankus.
Yes.
All right, 5-0, so you can proceed with working with Kat to get what you need in to get your building permits.
Your building permits already, I'll put a few extra notes from tonight in there, but it'll be ready by 8 AM in the morning, so,
I'll see you at 8.
okay.
Yeah, remember, I'm married. She's already fighting me a bit to get stuff going.
You're free to go if you want to go on and go.
Have a good evening.
Hey, you too, thanks. All right, let's go to the next application. This is application number CC 2025-00324, docket number 11-25-VA. It's a petition of Kirchhoff Homes LLC. They're requesting 2 variances. Can you take us through the staff report, please?
I can. So again, this is Kirchhoff Homes LLC, and this is a lot in Rossville. So they're requesting a variance for lot size to have a lot at 8,790 square foot instead of the required 10,000 square foot minimum. And then to allow a front yard setback from the road right of way to be 8 foot instead of the required 20 foot in the town of Rossville. This particular property, as the same as everything around it, it's all zone medium density residential, which is our most common zoning district inside of our towns for sewered single family dwelling lots. So this site is located in Rossville, as previously mentioned. It's on the east side of North Plank Street between East Cason and East Ramey. It's platted as Lot 6 in Reed's Addition, but it was in common ownership with Lot 5 for a significant amount of time and was apparently used as a common yard for that house. Since the ordinance went into effect, which would have been around maybe 3, minimum lot size for Rossville must be at least 10,000 square foot. So since this lot was divided back off and sold into different ownership, that's what kicks in. It would have been a conforming lot. In fact, if the other house at some point needs something, they're gonna have to deal with the same thing. They made themselves an illegal lot when they sold that off. So with those, we usually just kind of flag them till something happens that comes along and we're able to get it resolved. But that's what's generated the variance request, is the fact that it was combined and then re-separated. If it had stayed in separate ownership, it would have just been a legal non-conforming lot and they wouldn't have had to make the request. So, with that in mind, the lot size variance has to be approved before the setback variance can be approved, or else it's not a buildable lot at all. The petitioner is requesting a setback variance as well, to be 8 foot from the edge of the right-of-way rather than the required 20 foot, which is Rossville's front setback requirement. The petitioner did request a recommendation from the Rossville Town Council. They noted a concern as far as requesting a full 12 foot of variance because of the location of the lot on a corner and the challenge of having enough room for the 2 required off-street parking spaces to fit inside 8 feet without being in the road right-of-way or the sidewalk. The town council asked the petitioner to provide more details. Staff understands that those were provided. The town clerk did assign the application, but when we wrote the staff report, and I don't know, did we ever receive a letter? Yeah, the town has not submitted a letter of support, and the developer is still showing wanting the 8 foot. So right now there's just a little bit of difference between kind of where the town's concerned about, and they've stated why, versus what the developer's asking for. We did call the town just to make sure there wasn't some kind of oversight and be like, hey, we don't have a letter stating that you're in support of this. And our conversations with the town board member reiterated the fact that they were concerned 8 foot was not enough space for a vehicle to park. So that's kind of where we're sitting there. However, they are not against the idea of a variance. It's just the degree of variance they're concerned about is what they expressed to us as staff. So the site plan submitted does also show that the south side exceeds the required setback by about 9 foot. So the extra on the south side cannot give the developer the extra 12 foot he needs on the north side. There is no way to do this on this lot without needing a variance. But the board may want to discuss if the house should shift somewhat southward to leave a little more room on the north so that at least an average sized car could physically fit on the lot as required by the ordinance. Staff, we kind of did a measurement and we looked up the average length of an automobile in the US is 14.7 feet. I did not know that before doing the staff report, but consequently, when we examined this, we felt that a 15-foot setback to the north with a 5-foot variance would allow average vehicles to park entirely on the property for the 2 required parking spaces. And then if you had a real extreme, I don't want to say extreme because we all drive trucks, but if you had a larger truck, you're going to have a distance of anywhere from 18 to 23 foot of length, depending on the size of that truck. So the sidewalk alignment there then should mean that at least the vehicle with that 15 foot on property, then you need another 5 or so. You're not going to completely block all the way into the road or overhang the complete sidewalk. So it seemed like a compromise that would allow for parking without affecting other parties passing by. On the second page, you got a picture. It does show kind of the challenge here that the developer has with this lot on the corner and the way that the roads are aligned with 2 front yards. There's really not a great way for him to fit the house in a traditional manner. No matter what he does, he's likely to need a variance of some sort. There's stakes there in the photo where Kat went out and measured kind of to look at what the distance is. There is plenty of room. I think most of us are familiar with how road right-of-ways work. You know, the pavement is smaller and then you have some grass. So I think everybody has a comfort level that there is room not to be blocking where cars are driving with a front variance on that side. So there are 3 findings that have to exist to grant variances. First, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. So if the request for the lot size variance is approved, there's still adequate room for a new dwelling. The petitioner is requesting the variance. However, even if the variance is denied, somebody can probably find some form or design of house of some size that would fit there. It's just this house might not. In terms of the setback, there does seem to be a challenge there in terms of needing a variance on some side or another. It does not appear that granting a variance would be injurious as long as the variance is not to too great of a degree to where it would impede sidewalk or visibility as you approach the intersection. 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. So if the lot size variance and a setback variance of no more than 12 are approved, the petitioner would be able to move forward in building a new dwelling on the lot. Residential housing is a huge need in Clinton County, really throughout Indiana. It would appear that as long as sidewalks and roads are not blocked, neither allowance would adversely affect the adjacent area. 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. So this existing lot is a corner lot that's no longer used commonly with the adjacent lot and was originally in the era in which it was platted, not platted, designed to be used with the adjacent lot. So kind of going back to the original plat. So there's wasted space there that might well be better utilized for another dwelling rather than yard. If some kind of setback from East Cason is denied, but the lot size variance is approved, it would be difficult to build a new dwelling of reasonable size and shape that will fit on the lot. However, granting a 12-foot setback variance with 9 foot to spare on the opposite side would seem to be excessive and unrelated to a practical difficulty, especially when you also look at the fact that you need adequate space for off-street parking that is not provided with that alignment. The board may want to discuss that the variance granted be less than what's requested because there is plenty of room to shift the house further south before needing a variance on that side. And that would provide enough room for off-street parking that is not in the right-of-way at all and limits the possibility that even a larger vehicle would end up over the sidewalk. Although a setback variance will be needed, staff cannot find a practical difficulty that would require granting a full 12 foot, given that there's more than double what's required on the opposite side for the setback. So consequently, staff would recommend to approve the lot size variance as requested, and staff would recommend to approve remove some allowance of a setback variance from the edge of East Cason's right-of-way, but would strongly encourage discussion to allow less than what has been requested. Staff would suggest that a variance of 5 foot, which would align the house 15 foot from the right-of-way on the north side and still leave 8 foot from the south property line, which is more than the required 6-foot setback. Might be a more appropriate distance, as the average length of a car is 14.7 foot. So compact and mid-sized cars would fit completely on the petitioner's property. Larger cars might overhang a little bit, but they're gonna have a few more foot to the sidewalk, and then the sidewalk's gonna be 4 foot across, so the odds they completely block everything and drive pedestrians into the street would be slim with a 15-foot setback.
Thanks, Liz. Does the petitioner have anything to add? Okay. Got any staff discussion?
So I got a question. Does the 2 off-street parking spaces, are they cared for by a garage or not?
So I've never interpreted a garage or the lack thereof to be considered off-street parking, because first off, all garages don't, a lot of old garages don't even fit a modern car. Like, you just can't get it in, it's not gonna park. But 2, you don't usually have guests pull into garages. Garages frequently get used as like all-season spaces or tool and work spaces, and the cars are pushed to the outside. So I've always interpreted it to be 2 off-street parking is parking spaces in the parking lots and driveways, same as now. In fairness, nobody has appealed that decision to the BZA to try to get somebody to wrestle through it in a way that would be binding. Parking garages, which would be indoor parking if we look at commercially, are actually a different, like, we look at that as a different use category than regular off-street parking for a, you know, for a store or a, so I guess that's the way I've always interpreted it, because I don't know how I would look at a garage and then figure out, well, okay, because the ordinance says how big a parking space has to be. You know, how many feet in each direction you're supposed to have. But if I have a garage, like, I'll use my own old house before the tornado as an example. I had a 16-foot wide garage door. Supposedly, you're supposed to get 2 cars in there.
Right.
But you could not fit a van and a truck, no matter which way you tried to jam them through the door. So it really was only 1 parking spot, but then the truck was too tall, so I couldn't even get the truck in. So they ended up, so I guess that's kind of where my line of logic has gone with that. I think if somebody wants to try to convince me otherwise, but I just try to be consistent with everyone who
Sure.
comes in the situation.
I was just asking from a point of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's all.
Now, admittedly, you know, if you have a garage, if the applicant is using it, they have people who come to visit them, you know, they're gonna have room to have a little bit more
Right.
parking there, but at some point, you know, you can't be like, well, what if 40 guests come to visit? You know, any house is gonna have to figure out what to do at that point and where those people go. The ordinance just requires the 2.
So I guess my question is the 5, if we approve the 5, is that workable for you, or is there?
I mean, according to my plot plan, I have about 5.67 feet to move it to the south.
Okay.
Without having to take away the floating patio on the back or anything like that, to give added footage to the north side of the property where the right of way is at.
Okay. So 6 would be more workable than 5. Okay. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean,
Yeah, so we had suggested shifting 9 foot. I think he's saying he's got 5 or 6 before he needs to redesign his floating patio to fit, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes.
So, you know, I haven't seen the design of the floating patio, but obviously shapes and sizes, you know, you look at practical difficulty, meaning can somebody
Yeah.
comply, not is the design ideal. My concern is if we're deliberately putting cars, I get where the Rossville Town Council is coming from. If we're deliberately creating a situation where a car length cannot physically fit on the property, then the only place it's gonna go is over, and even with a variance of 5 foot for a 15-foot setback on the north, that assumes that the homeowner pulls their bumper all the way up, nearly to touch the garage door. I mean, it's still really tight, but there just comes a point where the lot doesn't work, and it may be that the lot just doesn't work for this house, you know, that it needs a different buyer or a different house configuration. But if there's not room for the two basic cars to fit, the,
Well, yeah, because then you got the problem of what you're doing to the pedestrian traffic and the kids on the bicycles and going down the sidewalk.
I would note too, while it is not the design, I'm looking for this house, yeah, that's what I thought. If you look at the lot, I gotta make sure I'm oriented properly, I'm sorry, I need a map. I just did a Colfax, okay. Yeah, if you look to the east side of the lot or the side away from Plank Street, they've got a 40-foot setback. So I suppose another possibility, if he really didn't want to give up his patio in the back, would be to leave the alignment how it is, redesign the internal space of the house to turn the garage 90 degrees, and bring the drive-in from that side. Now, obviously, you're going to lose some grass space, so it depends on priorities, but there would be no problem with depth on, 40 foot is more than enough for a vehicle to come in. And if you look at some of the other lots around this area that are older, that don't have, say, an attached garage, that is what a lot of them have done, is they've put in, a drive behind, kind of in the yard space where they can get 2 or 4 vehicles without being in the road, and then they just walk into their door. So there are other configurations by which, if he didn't like the shift of setbacks, he could change something about the structure to find a way to make it work.
So a variance of 5 feet will allow that 15-foot vehicle to sit in there
Yes, so 20 foot is the required setback, normally.
normally.
Yep.
Okay.
And I would note that is an average vehicle of 14.7 foot. I just struggled with, like, it is a tight space. Like, how is he gonna fit it on there? Like, I do think he's valid in seeking some kind of variance to try to make it work.
On my
So-
opinion on, because there's no existing sidewalks, because the houses behind it are existing, so I understand we'll have a sidewalk put in there as per code,
Yeah.
any new builds being done, but the foot traffic on the actual sidewalk ends at the back of the lot anyhow, because there's no existing sidewalk there. Plus you have another 24.8 feet to the edge of Cation Street. So most of the people riding bikes, stuff like that, I understand, would normally use a sidewalk, but they're gonna be using the street because that sidewalk ends right at the end of the lot anyhow. Because they're all existing lots back behind there.
And the 5-foot variance allows the sidewalk to be clear when a 15-foot vehicle is
As
parked.
best we can calculate. So if he aligns the sidewalk where most sidewalks are aligned in the road right of way, then he should have, with a 15-foot setback, he should have close to 20 foot to the edge of the sidewalk, from the front of the garage.
Okay.
And then, your 4-foot sidewalk, and he's got a little bit of grass and then the road.
Okay.
And you
So-
have the driveway all connecting all the way.
So admittedly, if you're in, like, I searched all kinds of different vehicles, if you're in like an F-350 extended cab long bed, you do get up to pushing 24 foot and you will probably be hanging into the sidewalk. But how many people who live in a town are gonna pick that vehicle? Like, I feel like you can't regulate to like the total one-off. But if you're in like a county truck, an F-150 extended cab short bed, all 3 of our trucks are 22 foot long. So you would overhang maybe by 1.5 foot. You're still gonna have about 3 foot, 2.5 to 3 foot that you can get by. And then if you're an extended cab, not a full crew, well, now you're only like 20 foot, so it starts getting shorter. And if you're not a truck, almost everything is shorter than 20 foot, so.
You're right.
So that was, that's
It was 6.
whatever way you wanna go with it, but that was the logic I used to arrive there.
Okay, all right. So, okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve application number CC 2025-03-00324, docket 1125 BZA. According to the findings of the staff report, which are incorporated in the motion by reference, with the variance at 6 feet on the north side.
Oh, hang on, just because we're divvying up and specifying, can you specify that you're granting the lot size variance in full,
Okay,
if that's your intent?
sure,
And then what it is you're granting for the setback variance, so that it's clear in the motion.
okay. And the setback variance would be, it would be 6 feet, which would be 14 feet from the right of way of the north side, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Leaving, that would be 9 feet, I guess, on the south property line. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
And you'd be giving the full variance for the lot size.
Yep.
Correct.
Full variance of the lot size.
Second. Roll call when you're ready.
So that's 14 foot from the right of way. I'm almost there.
You're fine.
All right, so that is a motion to approve the lot size variance as requested, and then a setback variance to 14 foot from the right-of-way, which is 6 foot less than the required 20, according to the findings in the staff report incorporated by reference. Andy Bailey,
Yes.
Grant Moeller,
Yes.
Stacy Pedigo,
Yes.
Scott Hessensberger,
Yes.
and Chester Benkes.
Yes.
And who was my second?
Me, Andy.
Thank you. So you'll need to revise your site plan to reflect that, but then, yeah, you'll be able to move forward with permitting.
Yeah,
I'll get something tomorrow.
yeah, once we get that, then everything else there, and ready to.
Perfect.
Because I already went out the measurements.
Perfect.
Measured my sleep now.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We don't have any, do we have any new business?
We do not.
Okay. Next meeting scheduled for June 24th, 2025.
And we do have one filing
Filing.
already and several floating around out there.
Okay.
And I will, I could just, I guess, give you guys a heads up. Kat and I were talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
It is the great unknown at what point the annex building is going to be completed and ready for us to move in. But at whatever point it is, the courthouse is then gonna start construction, and we're not gonna have this room available. There'll be a new commissioner's room over there. So if it looks to us as we get towards advertisement like there's any chance, then we're probably gonna see if we can use the city council chambers in Old Stony, just so we're not like trying to move people the night of and creating potential confusion, even if it means we miss the date a little bit. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up to just pay attention to the location as we get to end of June, early July, because somewhere in there, you know, if we're just not sure, then I think we've decided we're gonna default to something safe, so.
Well, I'll
Pay attention
know
for me, Grant.
definitely
I will.
after
Call you.
filing. After
Yeah.
all filings have the deadline or stop on the
Where are we
filing.
No, I'm already
I'll
getting
have
ready
to
to
know
move some
then,
of this
because
stuff.
I have to have
Yeah.
the publication in
Yeah.
the newspaper 2 days later.
So, but yeah, that's the only thing,
And as
just so.
soon as I know for sure we've got that pinpointed down, I'll let y'all know.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. We're adjourned.
Okay.
See you, folks.
See you later, Scott.
I gotta go to that ball game.
Jay,